Welcome to the Impact Learning Visionaries podcast, where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the learning and development industry. As always, we'll be bringing some laughter and a bit of fun along the way, but more importantly, you'll get some incredible insights, key lessons, and unique perspectives on everything related and possibly unrelated to training and development. Let's get this show on the road. Hey everybody, welcome to the Impact Learning Visionaries podcast. I'm joined today by John Dwoskin. John is an esteemed business coach, author, speaker, and podcaster who is on a mission to help businesses get unstuck, find clarity, and gain the courage to change and make better decisions so that they can reach their highest potential. Now, I met John recently on his podcast, and while we were talking, he mentioned a platform that he was about to launch. And it sounds really, really exciting. It's called Launch 3. And it's a platform that's aimed at equipping 16 to 28-year-olds with the specific strategies to evolve their life, personal brand, and career. And I thought it would be great to ask John to come on and just tell us a little bit about this platform. So welcome to the podcast, John.
Thank you for having me, Jason. It was great having you on my show, and I appreciate you having me on yours.
So tell us a little bit about this platform.
So the platform, so I'm 51 years old. I have two children. They're 17 and 20. And when I was 18, I'm 51 now, which seems like yesterday, but it wasn't. My dad gave me a set of tape sets. And they were Brian Tracy, The Psychology of Success. And he said, Jonathan, I think you'll learn more from these tapes than you will college. I was about to go into my freshman year of college. And from the moment I put it on my ears, Jason, it was like I knew I wanted to be a business coach, and I found the way that I could learn. You know, school was always difficult for me from a learning standpoint. It was hard for me to comprehend. It was hard to study and focus. It was hard to, for sure, take tests. And so I found myself through college never missing a class and studying for, hours and hours a day. But where I really learned the most was through these tapes, through these books, through these articles. And that always stuck with me. So when I graduated college, it never stopped. And it hasn't stopped till this day. And so my kids are 17 and 20, and I've wanted to, I coach, solopreneurs to Fortune companies and, salespeople to CEOs and everything in between. But I've always wanted to create a platform where I can give the 16 to 28-year-olds what I kind of see as a head start that I got because of the gift that my dad gave me. And I'm not smart enough to teach a class in school. But I am smart enough to teach people about a little bit about life and lessons, a little bit about growing their personal brand, and a little bit about their career and business, or starting or growing their own company and growing within a company. But I could never find kind of the sweet spot to work with this 16 to 28-year-old group. So long story short, my son was in Israel this summer and was supposed to be there the whole summer. And after 2 weeks, had to come home and have knee surgery, like emergency surgery. So he couldn't work because he was in bed for a month, and then he had rehab, et cetera, et cetera. And so I created an internship program for him, an 8-week internship program where he could do it in his bed. And it was a very mind, body, spirit, life, personal brand, kind of career evolving thing, where it was about 3 hours a day of different videos, of different books, of different meditations, of journaling, of inspirational videos, of all of these things. And I started sharing it with people, one in particular, David Chernow, who is a friend that was on my podcast talking about an article he wrote about some learning disabilities that he had, at lifeintroduced.com. And I started sharing with him about what I did for Jacob. And he said, you should create a company for that. And I said, I said, I've always wanted to. He said, so have I. So I said, well, then let's do it together. And hence launched Launch 3, where we are very, very passionate to give 16 to 28-year-olds a platform where they can learn real practical tools to put into their world, their life, their brand, and their career and their business immediately. Not just theory, but real, practical, simple formulas, tools, etc., that will make a huge impact and compound through their life.
And is there kind of some meaning behind the term Launch 3? Just curious.
You know, it's funny. We spent a lot of time and came up with a lot of different names, and we just we kept on like finding it and then changing it, and then finding it and then changing it. And the word launch just kind of like kept on coming up, right? Like, you know, we wanted something that represented growth. We wanted something that represented something that, you know, wasn't viral overnight, right? Like a launch takes time, right? It's about delayed gratification with maybe a little bit of instant here and there, right? The small wins along the way. When you're watching, you know, something like a rocket ship take off or an airplane take off, you know, it takes time to get to where it needs to be in the air and ultimately its destination. And 3 was, we loved the number 3, and we were focusing on 3 things: life, personal branding, and career. So we wanted something that kind of felt cohesive, and it just kind of through piecing and playing around with things, it just seemed to resonate and align with our mission.
That's great. So tell me, I mean, you talked about how universities, you know, your father's kind of words of wisdom saying you'll learn more from these tapes than you will in a university. Now, fast forward like almost 30 years later, and it doesn't seem like, you know, I've been involved in countless conversations with universities asking what are the types of skills we need to be offering students. And yet it still seems like there's a need for these types of platforms because they're just not being addressed.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I think that there's a lot of amazing things that universities do. I graduated, Eastern Michigan University. David graduated college. So I'm a believer in school. But I can't point. I can point to the tapes and to the books and to the mentors and to those things that have taught me, and I can only speak for me, that have really helped shape me. You know, when I graduated college, I started an internet company in June of '95, and I knew how to build a business plan. I knew about sales. I knew about companies and the operations, all from what I self-studied, right? All from the books I read, from the people that I talked to about it. And so school for me, what did I get from accounting and calculus and lit, not what I felt I needed in the real world. I had my dad not given me those tapes, I don't believe I would have been equipped to start and sell a company and to have the tools, or I would have realized I needed the tools my dad gave me at 18, but maybe I wouldn't have gotten them and I wouldn't have started until I was 23, 24, 25. And so my college years, I felt actually compounded that. And prior to my college years, my dad, when we would go on, vacations, my dad would be listening to these tapes as we drove up north. So just through osmosis, I was subject to them. And so I think universities need to start teaching about money, about, how money works, about how to show up to an interview, about how, the operations of a company work, the nuts and the bolts and the nooks and the crannies. AI is a big subject right now, especially with universities. And I'm under the opinion that instead of, like prohibiting people to use AI, teach them how to use every single tool. Teach them how AI can write a paper and educate them and help them and assist them and guide them. Then the homework assignment is you actually have to know the content and facilitate a discussion and bring all your voice to the topic and get people speaking and facilitate the evolution of inspiration and growth, because AI can't do that. And so to me, that's what sometimes they're not teaching, right? They're not teaching to the individual of what they need. I interview people, and it's amazing how many people don't look you in the eye, don't say thank you, don't shake your hand properly, don't follow up with a thank you note. The soft and nuanced skills that we're going to be teaching in this program. We're going to be having every Monday. We're doing a Monday Minute where it's all run off of a private Facebook group, a private LinkedIn group, and then it's going to be a Monday Minute where we have a 1-minute video and planning session for the week. Every Wednesday, we have a live Wednesday workshop. We have a guest speaker. We're going to have phenomenal topics. They're going to be teaching them, and it's going to be David and myself, sometimes just me and a guest speaker, sometimes David and a guest speaker, sometimes all of us. And then we're going to be answering questions the same day that people, within 24 hours, that they post them on LinkedIn, and also push the community to also respond and build so they can learn from each other. And they're just, to me, there needs to be more real-time lessons on how to do everything from, how do you get a mortgage? How do you open up a bank account? What are those different bank accounts that you need to open for yourself? How do you save money? What does it mean to save money? How do you go buy a car, lease a car? And then that's life. And then how do you build your brand? How do you really build your personal brand and own the intellectual capital that you're putting out there and grow it so for yourself, for promotions, for your company? And then what do you want to do for your career? How do you grow within a company? How do you talk to a tough boss? How do you send an email? When do you not send an email? How do you react and not respond? We're going to be teaching a lot about sales, because the feedback we get is that the 16 to 28-year-olds, they need help with sales. They need help with getting out there and really asking for business, or what sales means without sounding salesy. We're going to talk about how to start your own company from scratch and scale it, and give a lot of tools to make it easy. I'm kind of brushing over in a broad stroke, but a lot of these things, I don't think universities are really honing in and teaching to the person the way they need to be taught.
And it sounds like an amazing journey, and kind of wish I could rewind myself back to being 16 to 28 so I can take part in it. But also has there's a very similar feeling to what you guys are creating to what almost Seth Godin created in his Alta MBA, which is very much a kind of a cohort-driven experience, people learning from each other and pushing against the kind of societal approach of a traditional MBA. Right. So the thing I'm quite interested in is there's two parties. Almost there's one very obvious party, and then there's one probably less obvious party in this relationship. So the obvious party is the student himself, the 16 to 28-year-old.
Yeah.
And then the less obvious party is the employer, the ultimate kind of person who's going to be hiring this, because part of this platform here is, when everybody takes up something, they always ask that very direct question, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
And I was just curious in terms of like very kind of simple terms, if student A comes out of school, goes into university, goes into the job market, student B follows the same path but takes advantage of basically the Launch 3 platform. How would you see those two being different in the eyes of a potential employer?
Yeah. Well, I don't necessarily, I'm not saying that Launch 3 is a replacement for a university. I think it is in collaboration with universities. I think there's a lot of things that universities can, that they can teach you, and there's a lot of benefits to universities. But if you're going to university or you choose not to go to university, right, our program is going to teach a lot of the basics. If you're going to the university and you subscribe to Launch 3, it's going to be a great foundation to give you a lot of tools that will work well that you can actually use within the university, right? Within your classes, with all of those. So, but what I think it does for an employer. So we have. I'm going to get to your answer in like 30 seconds ish. We have the students who are our clients, and then we also have the parents who are paying for the students. So we have the students that are investing in themselves. We have the parents who are paying for their children. And then we have employers who will pay for their employees' children as a retention tool and as part of a holistic wellness for the family and the growth of their children. We then have employers or sponsors that pay and sponsor other people to be part of the program. Maybe those who are in underprivileged areas that maybe can't afford, I think there will be some companies that will sponsor people. For every 21 memberships we sell, we are giving one membership away for free. One of our starting programs that we're doing that with is a company called Winning Futures, an organization called Winning Futures. But I think what it does for the employer, having somebody go through our program, is that they're going to have somebody who shows up to an interview more prepared. They're going to understand the landscape of what to ask at an interview. They're going to understand what it's like to understand the delayed gratification of growing within a company versus wanting to, rise up the ranks every 3 months, right? And so, and they're gonna have somebody who comes with somebody who has been able to tap into their EQ and their IQ from the guest speakers and from the content that we're providing. They're also going to have someone who, if they're in the program, and it depends for how long, they've networked with a lot of other people who are in the program. They've networked and had exposure to the speakers. We have a podcast, so maybe they've also been a guest on the podcast. Maybe we've inspired them to start a side business. They're going to bring things that will also inspire other people within the organization, because the content, we have a very, if they take content that we're creating and they put it out to the world in their world at their frequency, at their vibration, then that's great. That's what we want. We want people, take whatever we share and make it your own, and then go share it and raise the frequency and vibration in the environment that you are in. And so that's a lot of our goal, is to get people to tap into their potential so they can get other people to tap in their potential. And then that compounds and has a ripple effect that begins to just elevate everybody.
Yeah, that's great. So there's the quintessential question that I think, I've always, having mentored lots of younger people, having my own daughter who's kind of done a kind of degree herself, is this I think the big challenge is a lot of kind of young kids, young adults are really struggling with that kind of quintessential question of, I don't actually know what I want to do with my career.
Yeah.
Things kind of resonated with me, and there's been no shining lights and angelic kind of harps and things in the backgrounds pointing the way. And it's quite a big struggle, I think, with a lot of younger people. Is that something that you guys are looking to try and address, is to kind of facilitate and help people in terms of being exposed to different things to figure out what it is that they really get passionate about?
Yes, absolutely, Jason. And I think there's also a responsibility on the person who joins the program. And whether you join the program or not, when people are in that situation, specifically 16 to 28-year-olds, I think one of the important things is you got to show up. You got to show up. You have to put yourself out there. You have to figure out, where you're going to maybe volunteer in the community, where you're going to get an internship throughout the summer, where you're going to, the mentors you're going to proactively go out and talk to. There's so many of my kids' friends, my son's friends in particular, that have been talking to me for years on, trying to figure it out. And, this is what I want, but I'm not sure what to do. And should I major in this? Should I major in this? And you just got to throw yourself into things to see if you like it or not. And so what our program does is it provides predictability and continuity. And what I mean by that is those are things that people have a hard time defining today, but they really crave. They crave consistency and structure and predictability. So they know when to show up and they can fit it into their day. So that's why everything is going to be very kind of Monday we do this, Tuesday we're going to do this, Wednesday we have our lives, it's going to be at this time. So people can work around it. And if they miss it, they can it'll be posted on the private LinkedIn page and they can watch it later. But yes, as long as somebody joins, whether it's Launch 3 or any program, as long as they show up and expose themselves to being in an environment, where they participate, they raise their hand, and they ask the questions. There's a responsibility. We want to create a warm environment where people know that we are accessible to them in real time. David and I are both business people that I think some people would look at from the outside in and say we are successful, right? So I'm not saying that, but I think people would look at our bios and say, oh, they can teach me something. But it's not just about the capitalistic view of business. It's about being a conscious capitalist. And so we're really paying attention to creating a really warm, inviting environment where people aren't afraid to raise their hand. Because to your question, Jason, if you're going to show up, people need to feel safe in that environment that they show up. Because sometimes it's just that one thing that one person says at the right time and the one question that maybe they ask or somebody asks that answers their question, that all of a sudden the light bulb goes off, right? It's that aha epiphany moment. And so we wanted to create something that was simple, that was easy to follow. You can show up when you want to. You can do it on demand when you want to. But we're launching it at a price that is affordable, that it's hard to say no to joining. And so we want people to show up. We want people to participate. If there's anyone in the group that we feel is outside the boundaries and making it an unsafe environment, we're going to kick them out of the group, because we only want to grow this with like-minded people who understand that the soul of this is to help themselves and the collective of everyone.
Mm. And just curious about, you've touched on something which I think is maybe a bit of a risky thing to talk about, but this concept, just going back a bit to kind of people entering the working world today, having very little patience and wanting to be the CEO, wanting a seat at the table without really kind of that life and work experience.
Yeah.
Is that something that you think you can actually help people unlearn? I mean, it's obviously a characteristic of Gen Zs, and I know that I'm probably entering some dangerous ground here, but I think I've been subject to a number of conversations, both with employers and with people people in positions at being Gen Zs who are wanting to kind of have that promotion without having necessarily put in the hard work.
Yeah. So I'm a Gen X, and I understand exactly how what you're talking about, what these young adults are feeling, because I wanted to graduate college and start my own company. And when I was 23, that's exactly what I did. And I learned the hard way in a lot of ways because, what you think you know, you don't know what you don't know. And so you learn a lot. So I understand that yearning to start your own company. And I think there's different paths, right? So there's many of today's generations that are going to leave school and start their own company, and they're going to surround themselves with the proper mentors along the way, and places like Launch 3 that are going to help them catapult and learn things very quick, learn things and get the tools and techniques, and they're going to commit to the process. I think number one is you've got to commit, no matter what you want to do, you've got to commit to the process of learning. And to me, that's something you need to spend a minimum of 5 minutes a day doing. But the obstacle more is people not starting their own company, because there's that avenue, but going into other companies and understanding the landscape of if you are an employee within a company and that's the career path you've chosen, there's a lot of great things that you can do to differentiate yourself, but sometimes you just need the reps to grow and to learn to get to the next level of the organization. And I think the obstacle is twofold. I think sometimes some companies don't do a good enough job of explaining what that path is. And I think companies, as a business coach, I can look and say, well, many companies should provide a clearer path of what that looks like. The younger generations bring a skill set that is tremendous. It's tremendous. But you still need, in many cases, the reps of understanding the business and the seasons of the business. And that doesn't happen overnight. And so I think it's kind of laying things out for yourself and for companies to do for their onboarding new employees, and mapping out, hey, let's map out your 100-day plans 100 days at a time. And every 100 days, you will have a clearer picture of that next place that you're going. But here are the skill sets that we want to teach you. We're going to invest in you. You need to spend time studying your skill, growing your skill set, and then everybody's got to grow collectively. If that is done, it kind of in more alignments, then I think we'll see an increase in retention. And I think we'll see an increase of mentor programs where people are really investing. I work with some companies that have phenomenal programs where the older generations are all about succession planning, right? Bringing somebody in and saying, hey, we're gonna train you up to my role, and every year this is what it's gonna look like, and they have complete clarity. If we don't give the younger generations clarity, then there's a higher probability that they'll leave because they want clarity. And as companies, we need to kind of zoom out, in my opinion, and provide clear roadmaps so nothing is lost in translation of what they need to do, where they need to grow, and who's going to help them get there.
All right. Well, while we're on the subject of tricky subjects, let's jump straight into another one. So I'm very curious to hear about your thoughts on leadership. And the fact that I think, we're at a time in history where we probably have some of the worst leadership role models that we've ever had. And I think that there is a systemic kind of breakdown of leadership globally, and at a time when we probably need leadership more. And I suppose I would have said the same thing 10 years ago and 10 years before that and 10 years before that. But are you guys looking to kind of try and tackle this leadership gap? Do you think it's something that's is outside of the scope of Launch 3, or firstly, how do you kind of perceive leadership at the moment?
Yeah, I think, I love that question. And I think what's always worked for me is, leading. When I was out of college, I was leading wrong. Well, not fully wrong, but half wrong. I thought I was leading right until, as a Mike Tyson, everybody thinks they have a plan until they get punched in the face, right? So, I thought I was leading right until I realized, I remember I was reading a book about 25 plus years ago by Gary Zukav, The Seat of the Soul. And it talked about that the ideal human is when the personality ends and the soul begins and you can't even tell. And I remember thinking, I got to get in alignment with that. Because I'm a kind human being, but I was out of alignment with how I was leading in my early 20s. And that really woke me up. And from that moment on, I've always been on a constant growth mission to be a servant leader, heartfelt leader in alignment with who I am. And I think I think we're going to see a trend of people saying, hey, I am going to lead in a way that's in alignment with who I am. And that doesn't mean that I can't be firm. That doesn't mean that I can't be hold people accountable. But I'm going to not compromise my values of who I am. And I think something that came out of COVID is just that. People are more aligned with their own personal values. They're aligned with a vision that they have for themselves and the life that they want, and how they want to feel and how they don't want to feel. And I think that we're going to see a big movement to that. I've been in leadership positions where leaders have wanted me to be more ruthless, but I was running successful, running successful areas and very, very profitable. And so they couldn't complain. But I always felt that did my best to always be myself. And when I couldn't be myself, I left, and I hence started my own coaching company so I could just be myself. But I think being in alignment and holding the line, one of the exercises as a coach that I work with people on is I tell them, visualize a line. Just visualize this line. And now visualize what it feels like to be below that line. And then I say, don't comment, just visualize what it feels like below the line. Now visualize yourself back to the line. Now visualize yourself above the line. What does that feel like? Tap into that feeling. And then I ask people, what did it feel like? So I'll ask you, what did it feel like below the line?
It didn't feel great.
Right.
Yeah.
And what did it feel like at the line?
Awesome.
And what did it feel like above the line?
Exhausting.
Exhausting for some. At the line and above the line is typically where people feel great, right? And so as a leader, it's a litmus test. If you believe that what you're doing is creating a below the line culture, a below the line feeling, and in your intuitive self, that you are moving in a movement below the line, then you as a leader got to check yourself, and you got to wait until you can come back and you're at the line. Because the leaders today are going to be the leaders who are at the line or above the line.
Yeah.
And so what we'll see is you're going to see, people leave companies, and you're going to see new companies starting that are focused in alignment with this. And yes, we'll launch 3, be working on these types of skills to provide people leadership and ways to step into their personal power, their authentic power, their leadership skills, their best selves, their active listening skills, their reflective listening skills, their ability to listen to people, the ability to have people find and have a voice, the ability to create a culture of inspiration, the ability to create a culture of empowerment. Yes, but got to show up because you can't learn it all we can't teach it and we can't learn it in one class. So it's going to be a little bit every week as we spoon feed it out. 1 minute on Monday, drop a TED Talk in LinkedIn every Tuesday, do a live Wednesday workshop that we're going to have guest speakers to expose them to people that maybe they haven't been exposed to, with themes of things that they need that are real time. Because although it's planned out, we're going to be listening to the community and we're going to be teaching them what we hear in real time. And we're going to bring the collective content and we're going to bring the collective speakers together, not only live for them, as I just described, but also within our podcast as well.
Yeah, and it's so important. I mean, I think, especially when it comes to leadership, the hard lesson I had to admit to myself is as much, like, when you're younger, you don't really want to listen to anybody. You think you've got all the answers. And
right.
And I realized how impressionable I was in my 20s and how much I mirrored the behavior of others, and sometimes to my detriment. And I think that's one of the big challenges with leadership is that we sometimes forget that younger people entering the organization are very impressionable, and they're going to be looking for, role models. And sometimes, thanks to society, the role models that we are attracted to are not necessarily the best ones. They're the ones that the organization, kind of congratulates or puts on a pedestal. And sometimes we know that that's definitely not the right type of leader.
Yeah.
But I suppose just kind of looking at your journey.
I will say one thing, Jason. I do think one thing, right? So I hear exactly what you're saying, but I think also it's almost kind of like taking that minute to pause and saying, okay, I can extract one thing from this company that's really positive, but I'm not gonna, like you said, I'm so impressionable. I can maybe accomplish certain things, but I can do it my way. And I think sometimes that takes a moment to pause. Meditation and stillness is going to be a big thing that we teach and talk about and have throughout our piece, throughout Launch 3, because it's all of that is happening. It has always happened. If you go back to the Men That Built America, if you watch it on the History Channel, we could go back to the Vanderbilt times and the Carnegie times. So, but I think it's pausing and realigning yourself and recalibrating yourself and regulating yourself and getting centered with yourself to say, okay, I want to accomplish this, but this is how I'm going to do it. And then create an actual, but I think it takes a moment of silence, which I think most people don't do.
Yeah, and it also takes courage as well, because sometimes it's doing the less popular thing because it's the right thing to do. So looking at the Launch 3 journey over the kind of next 6 months, year, 2 years, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge that you guys are going to face?
I think the biggest challenge that we're going to face is getting people to actually show up, right? Having the members and getting people to show up and getting people to participate. And so our goal is to bring a ton of value. And so we know that, that 16 to 28-year-olds, as well as everybody else, they have busy lives. They have a lot going on in their world. And so our goal is to be very dedicated to providing them the value and the content that we continually hear back from them. So they show up, they listen, they participate. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. When we share this idea with people love it. They say, oh my God, that's such a great idea, this and the other. And we believe in the mission and are so passionate about it. But now it's getting people to actually show up, participate. Like you said earlier, there's a lot of people out there that don't know what they want to do, but they got to show up every day to something. And so our hope is that one of the things that they plan to show up is to the Launch 3 content.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, and you're right. It's going to be difficult. I mean, if I think back when I was 16, you'd have had a big competition on your hands because you would have been competing against my aspiration to be a professional skateboarder.
Or Ep6.
Ep6. Oh, absolutely. Like a YouTube stream. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. Right. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. But
yeah. So just kind of as we're coming to a close, there's normally two questions I always ask our guests, and this first one is we normally ask the guest to share a bit of wisdom, but I think this time I'm going to change it around. I think a critical part of success is that what you're creating is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If I'm a learning and development manager, or I'm an executive in a business, I kind of want this initiative to succeed because it means that I'm going to get better quality, more mature, more considered, more professional people coming into my organization. Ultimately, the hope is that the Launch 3 guys it would be clear and obvious when I've got a Launch 3 person. So the kind of question I guess is just, how do you want the audience, people who are in learning and development, people who are in executive decision or positions in their organizations, how do you want them to kind of show up and contribute to the success of Launch 3?
I want you to think of us as someone to collaborate with. I work in my business coaching, right? In my business coaching, I work with solopreneurs to Fortune companies and everything in between. And when I work with multiple, whether it's salespeople, managers, owners, executives, etc., a lot of times I work with a lot of different people within the same organization because they see me as somebody that they can help get them further faster. They see me as someone that they are collaborating with. They see me as somebody as that can help them tap into their highest potential because other people in the company are really busy. And so they bring me in a company to help everybody grow and to give them ideas and to hold them accountable and provide them guidance and contents that can really help them grow in real time with real-time tools and techniques. And I think it's the same with Launch 3, right? We want to collaborate. Let us teach the people that are in your company, the children of the people that are in your company, or people that are coming to your company, skills that will get them starting at step 21 instead of step 3 when they walk in the door. And then let us, evolve that learning through consistent value and learning as they grow, as they work and they grow within your organization.
Great. Yeah. Now you know what to do, guys. So final question is, if you could share with us a book, podcast, or some experience that you've had in recently that's had a profound impact on you.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, your wisdom question, I just want to answer it real quickly because my parents gave me a piece of wisdom early on that has stuck with me my whole life, which is you can always learn from somebody older or younger than you. And so, and that is also never shut anybody out. And that has always been a great lesson for me. But a book that I recently read that I wasn't even really planning on enjoying, and it became one of my favorite books, was a book by Dr. I think he's a doctor, Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. And the book is called What Happened to You? And the book is about a therapist who deals with childhood traumas and healing. And the book is incredible because the foundation of what they talk about is how to regulate yourself. And I think in today's world, in a post-COVID world, we're all trying to figure out how to regulate ourselves. And this book did a phenomenal job. I listened to it on Audible. I'm dyslexic, so it's easier for me to listen. I can retain it at a much higher rate than I can reading it. Reading it takes me 3 months. Audible, I can listen to it in less than a week. And this book was great. It had a really big impact on me because it defined something that I think I always love books where they define things that people have a hard time defining. Like The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. He defines why people resist and then goes into the art and the science of it. And this book defined how people may not be able to define that they just need to find a way to regulate themselves so they can get back to center faster and accomplish what they want to accomplish.
Fantastic. And yeah. I am a little bit jealous, not that I'm jealous about your dyslexia, but jealous that you can get so much value out of audiobooks. I've never grown up. So the moment someone starts reading a book to me, I'm like that 6-year-old child, I fall asleep. I just can't help it. I don't know.
Yeah. I love it. I'm grateful for Audible every day. I really am, because it's so hard for me to sit down and read and comprehend. And so, I use a lot of tools that read to me, and it's just been an amazing tool for me.
Yeah, drives me mad. I wish I could actually take more advantage of it. But John, it's been an absolutely wonderful experience having you on the show. I'm keeping my fingers crossed and wishing you the best of luck for Launch 3. Hope it's going to be a massive success. And everybody watching, listening to this, please reach out to John if you are looking to either collaborate or even start sending people to his platform. I think there's lots of benefits to platforms like these. So thank you so much, John.
Jason, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Impact Learning Visionaries. If you found it interesting or helpful, please subscribe by clicking on the button down below so you don't miss our next one. Also, be sure to check out our Reality Bites blog for more information on how technology is aiding in learning development. Links are all in the description below. Go check it out. Thanks a lot. Bye.